As a Brooklyn resident, I've grown up seeing churches all over the borough, oftentimes only a few blocks apart. And in fact, it's historically been known as the city of churches due to how many have been established in the 19th and 20th centuries. Christianity, however, isn't the only religion that European immigrants brought over in this time period. There were also many Jews who ended up establishing synagogues, with one of them becoming the congregation I'm a part of. A long, long time ago, back in 1856, Congregation Beth Israel was founded as the first ever synagogue in Brooklyn. As there were no other synagogues around at the time, its founding was a joint effort between Jews practicing different sects of Judaism. Both conservative and Reform Jews worshipped there. They eventually came into conflict over how services should be run as a result, which is why a few years later, in 1861, the Reform Jews decided to leave this congregation and start their own. And that was the start of Congregation Beth Elohim. When Congregation Beth Elohim was first established, it was very small. 41 members met at Granada Hall, which was a building that used to exist on Myrtle Avenue. In order to find a dedicated space for themselves, they actually took advantage of the fact that there were so many churches around. They purchased the former Cavalry Protestant Episcopal Church in 1862. This building doesn't exist today either, but I was able to walk to its approximate location and film what was there. At some point, the layout of the streets was changed to make room for the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway. So there's a lot of cement, and a lot of cars, and a lot of plants. But at one point in the past, there was a Jewish community here. As Congregation Beth Elohim grew, it had to move from space to space in order to accommodate new members. I was able to get this footage of one of its old buildings on State Street, which is now used by the city government. But none of these locations are nearly as impressive as the one that's withstood the test of time. The current domed sanctuary at the corner of 8th Avenue and Garfield Place was completed in 1910. It ultimately sat 1,200 people. Not only that, but a supplementary building was built across the street in 1929 to provide more meeting spaces for the now much larger community.
My name is Josh Breitzer, and I'm the cantor and music director here at Congregation Beth Elohim in Brooklyn. The cantor is an ordained member of Jewish clergy, similar to a rabbi. We both have several years of advanced study. We both receive ordination. We both perform many of the same functions for the people that we serve in the communities that we serve, life cycles, pastoral care, teaching. But the areas of specialization differ in that while a rabbi specializes in explicating Jewish tradition through text and through textual interpretation, the cantor does it through music and uses music as the primary means to engage people in connecting to their Jewish identity and being a teacher of Jewish tradition and culture. I chose to become a cantor because I spent many, many years training to be a musician. I played piano since I was 4 years old. I started singing in choirs when I was in middle school and in musical theater and opera in high school, and I majored in voice and opera in college. I even have a master's degree in voice and opera. But while I was doing my master's studies, I realized that I didn't love classical music as much as I thought, and certainly not as much as the person who later became my wife did. And so when it became clear that we were serious and I knew I wanted to propose to her, I started thinking about other ways that I could use all my years of classical music training. And so I started talking to cantors in the Boston area where we lived at the time, and the more cantors that I spoke with, the more I realized that this would be not only a really convenient way for me to use all of my years of training, but also an incredibly meaningful way to connect with my own Jewish identity and to use it as a way to inspire others to do the same. Cantors and rabbis undergo 5 years of training. Those who serve Reformed Jewish congregations like I do typically attend the Hebrew Union College, which has campuses throughout the America and Israel. The primary campus devoted toward training cantors is in New York, and so it was a 5-year program, 1 year in Jerusalem and then 4 years in New York, and all of that was after I got my initial bachelor's and master's degrees. Musical influences, as I say, I've been playing piano since I was very young, and have classical vocal training starting in high school and through college and grad school. But some of the earliest music I can remember listening to as a small kid was American folk and pop songs, James Taylor, Simon and Garfunkel, Billy Joel, Al Jarreau. And those really traveled with me throughout my life as a musician and then as a cantor. I've been the cantor at CBE for 14 years. It's my first and only position since I was ordained in 2011. And I'm a member of the clergy team. I engage in all the typical activities that rabbis do with respect to providing pastoral care and officiating at different life cycle functions. I'm actually going to officiate a wedding later today that we're speaking. But also, I am in charge of the music and worship for all of our religious services every week. For the Sabbath services, what we call Shabbat, on Friday night and Saturday mornings. I oversee all of the B'nai Mitzvah preparation for kids in their middle school ages, starting to become B'nai Mitzvah when they're 12 and 13 years old primarily. Over the years that I've been here, we have grown as a community from 640 families in 2011 to over 1,300 here in 2025, and most of that growth has been in the young family sector. So we have increasing numbers of B'nai Mitzvah every year, whose preparation and curricula I oversee. One of the things I started doing early on during my tenure at CBE was collaborate with other synagogues and other independent Jewish groups throughout Brooklyn, especially at different times of the Jewish calendar year when we would be much more successful and powerful coming together to celebrate as opposed to each doing our own thing separately. And so I began and continue to curate a series of holidays under the Across Brooklyn rubric. So we have Slichot across Brooklyn, and Simchat Torah across Brooklyn, and Shavuot across Brooklyn, examples of different holidays where I sort of take a lead role in bringing different people together from all over Brooklyn, different Jewish communities, synagogues, and the like, to be able to celebrate and mark the occasions in different ways. Probably the most public version of that is our Simchat Torah celebration, which marks the end of the annual cycle of reading through the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And we have that celebration outside at Grand Army Plaza, right in the middle of Brooklyn. And there's a lot of singing and dancing and just pure unadulterated joy in having reached that occasion together.